listening to Country Living Conversations. Here's your hosts, Anthony and Candace.
Welcome back, everybody, to Country Living Conversations. I'm Candace.
And I'm Anthony.
And we're going to continue the conversation that we first started in our previous episode. We really appreciate everybody listening and sharing and your comments and your feedback. It's been great. And we're just excited to continue the conversation on country living. And we encourage you to join in with us with your comments, your feedback, all that stuff. I think today we're going to start with the topic of chickens.
Yes. We have two topics basically today. We have chickens, and if we have time, we'll hit on pigs a little bit.
Don't
but
hit
our
on
main,
pigs, that's weird.
Yeah, we don't hit on pigs, but you know what I'm saying. we'll bring up the topic of pigs in if we have time.
Yeah.
But our main focus today is chickens, and why we want to have our own chickens and stuff like that.
So first, why did we want to have our own chickens in the first place? My first thought is, I know that there's a lot of reasons why people might raise their own chickens, but my first thought, eggs. I wanted my own eggs, if nothing else.
Yes.
I could eat eggs for every single meal. There's been days where I did that, and I was perfectly all right with that. And we eat a lot of Brenner in this house, which is breakfast for dinner. And it's our favorite meal. I think we could potentially eat eggs, for every meal.
Basically every meal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And if we had enough chickens laying eggs, we could sell eggs also as a small form of income.
Yeah. There's not a lot of income
in
chicken eggs, basically, because the amount you feed you spend on them, and the amount of eggs you get it's just kind of like you're paying for your feed, basically.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot of
even.
income. Yeah, basically break even. But they have dual purpose. You can raise them for meat and eggs. So, also actually three purposes.
Mm-hmm.
You can meat, eggs, and they get rid of bugs.
Exactly.
So,
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
So,
that it's not just one thing you get out of raising chickens or any birds, really. But they can serve a purpose one way or the other. Yeah. And then some people are like, I just like my chickens. They're my pets. They're my family. And like, okay. And that's fine. They've got their own little personalities and stuff too. But for us,
yes,
the eggs, the meat, and getting rid of bugs was the
if you live out in the
thing.
sticks, bugs are everywhere.
They're everywhere.
So if they get rid of ticks for us,
yes.
More the better.
We live in one of those areas where some ticks can give you a disease that makes it impossible to eat red meat without getting sick.
Right.
So,
and we have a bunch of little red meats walking around outside, which we would like to consume. But yes, if that happens, then I don't know what I'll do.
Yeah. So that would really be disappointing. But when you have chickens, you greatly decrease the possibility of getting bit by one of those ticks.
They can get rid of also little snakes as well.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about that some.
Yeah.
But no, go ahead.
Yeah, get rid of a whole bunch of snakes. And
they eat snakes.
They do eat snakes. I saw one eat a snake though.
Yeah.
Like a long time ago, but
so surprising. Like, hold on, that's not a big worm. That's a snake.
Right.
And it's eating it whole.
But, yeah, so we're on kind of the topic of, raising, but we're looking into even raising them commercially as well, because we see a growing need for that in our community, that they want better food, to give their families and stuff. So
the quality of farm raised chicken, not commercially raised in the way that you get them from the store. Like the quality of a farm raised chicken is exceptional. Mm-hmm. And we didn't want to rely on what's available at grocery stores just for our own meat. Like it's not even just about the food supply and shortages that we've seen in the last few years, which that's of course a part of it.
Right.
But that wasn't even the biggest part. We've seen plenty of that in the last few years. It's kind of jarring when you run into that, but it's clear that what you get from a conventional grocery store, any of them, even what's called organic,
Yeah.
could be so much better.
Oh, definitely.
So much better.
Definitely. And the what they go through, in the what the chickens go through in a commercial area, it's a horrible way how they live.
Yeah. I'd heard someone say recently, if you want to talk about, cruelty to animals, you shouldn't eat meat. It's like, okay, have you also seen the way that they're raised commercially?
Right.
Like, it's awful compared to what they experience on a farm.
Not to mention they fill them with antibiotics and a whole bunch of,
and the preservatives they put it in so that it can be shipped without rotting on the way there.
And they're like the stuff they put in to make them grow more is like crazy too.
It's gross.
But yeah, when we first got into this, we were doing it for our own raising chickens for our own supply and stuff like that. Now we're kind of leaning towards the thought of we might like to raise them for, to sell, so that other people can enjoy the the food that we enjoy now.
Yeah.
Instead of buying it from the store.
Yeah. If we raise our own meat, we know what's in it, and we'd be more inclined to eat that rather than buying something potentially questionable somewhere else. And like how a chicken is dispatched, made unalive commercially versus what you usually get from a farm raised chicken. It's completely different. Completely different.
Yeah, definitely.
Most of the meat that you buy from the grocery store, we have found it was electrocuted to kill it. It wasn't, and that's why like you can still see blood in the meat quite often. And whether or not that's good or bad is a whole other discussion. But I don't like to see that personally. Not in my chicken, at least. I don't mind if my beef's still a little red, but my chicken should not still have blood in it.
Oh, definitely.
At all. But the way that most chicken is raised and dispatched on a farm is usually like they're bled out
More humanely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quicker, and they're not in some horrible pain the whole time. It's kosher, and the blood is taken from the meat, so it's not all this other stuff that could potentially make you sick.
Definitely.
In the meat.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I never thought I would be doing it. Getting like butchering chickens ourselves, 3 years ago, I'd never thought I'd, be here, but doing that. But considering the way the food supply is going in the stores nowadays, it's just a better way to go.
It is. I don't want to go back to buying chicken at the store. Thankfully, there's plenty in the freezer right now of our own meat that we raised and butchered and processed here. Where I'm still learning to make these chicken dishes, y'all. But the fact that it was from meat that I got out of our backyard, essentially, it was chickens that we fed, we raised, we butchered, and we processed ourselves.
And we're still finding innovative ways to, raise them better and, give them a good life while they're here on our farm, and help them live better. Like I just said that, but I'm just saying, I'm trying to reiterate, like we don't want to, cage them in like a small little coop and have them stuffed in there for a horrible life.
They can't move around. They don't actually get food that's good for them. They aren't, they're not in some little enclosure. Like even what is considered free range meat at the store literally just means that their cage has a couple extra inches or something like that. Like they're not actually on dirt or
Right.
on grass. They're not outside. They are on concrete or stacked on top of 1,000 other chickens being treated the exact same way.
Yeah. Not to mention they're pretty easy farm animals to even have.
True.
On the farm itself.
True.
They're not very needy. Give them water, shelter, food.
And love.
And
give them an essentials kit.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, their needs are simple. Certain breeds have different hot and cold weather needs, but depending on the breed you get, where you live, just go with what you got. So they're easy to bring up on your farm and stuff like that. So
if you let them free range and you live near, even if it's not a heavily wooded area, but especially if it is, feed is free.
Basically,
especially in the summer months at least.
Let them forage for their own, feed, and then give them more, give them more feed, of course,
if
but
they need it,
let them forage off the land.
Let them eat them nasty bugs.
Right.
It's good for them.
Protein.
Yeah, makes great eggs.
Makes them big too.
Yes.
Naturally.
They eat the seeds that they find. They eat bugs. They eat roots on things. Some greenery, some grass. And that's fine. That's all they need. It's everything they need right there. And yeah, like you were saying, some don't really mind the cold or the hot that bad, depending on the breed.
Right.
I wanted to share the story of, it wasn't this past winter. I think it was the winter 22, where we had this horrible winter storm come through. Super cold temperatures, and I'm talking like down to the teens or under 0 temperatures because of high winds and ice. And we had a small flock at that time in the backyard and 2 coops, one that had nothing around it and another that we reinforced so that the winds wouldn't bother them, the cold wouldn't bother them.
Oh, it was bundled, I remember.
Oh yeah. But they didn't want to go in there.
Yeah,
they didn't. I remember looking out the back window. I saw you out there, wrapping it further, it was like a thick plastic to keep the wind out and keep the heat inside. And, in the ice coming down. And I'm like, I'm so proud of them. This is so great. But the chickens still went in the other coop that was not covered.
Right.
And I remember the big white rooster that we had standing proud as these horrible winds just whipped by him.
Yeah.
And the others standing with him, they did not care.
No, they didn't care at all.
They didn't care. I think the worst thing that happened to any of them is that the big white rooster, the whatever you call the crown or the crest on top of his head got a little bit frostbitten.
I think that was from frostbite. I'm not sure.
We're not sure. But we think that might have been what happened. And he was fine. He was totally fine.
He was a little jerk anyway, though.
Oh, yes. But it was funny, like, we're sitting there, like, we're inside, hunkered down, and we would periodically look out the back window to check on them. And it was like the whole flock was in that open coop.
Yeah.
Did not care. And until, it was a day or so later, because this storm lasted a couple of days, where we'd coax them into the oven, because we were afraid for them. Like, you're going to die out here. And, like thinking back, honestly, I don't think they would have.
No, they wouldn't have.
If they had stayed out, just because they didn't care.
We had heaters and stuff in there, and they just didn't. They just didn't care about it. They were like, whatever. I don't care about this heat.
Yeah.
Or this cold, whatever.
And so again, what you might think they need extra, usually is not the case.
Right.
They basically need a place to perch. Mm-hmm. And they will settle for tree limbs. They will settle for the top of their coop or the walls of the pig's pen, to perch on at night. Just as long as it's off the ground. That's all they're looking for.
And those were our layer chickens in the beginning. Those were our first chickens we ever got. Mm-hmm. Our layer chickens. We've since restarted our flock now. We don't have any layers laying at the moment.
Yeah, they're growing.
They're growing. But we restarted our flock, and we also got some broiler chickens as well that we're going to be dispatching pretty soon.
We would have been doing that today, but we weren't able to because some things were missing.
Yeah, we ran out of propane.
Yeah. We had a propane tank that we got from the store thinking that it had propane in it. No, you know.
Yeah, that's another story.
That's another story. So it's like, let's talk about chickens. Let's go in and talk about chickens. But yeah, their needs are very simple. And what you need to dispatch them is not much. We made some kill cones out of some aluminum sheeting, and nailed it to some boards so that they could be put in there upside down, and their head could come out the bottom. There's no, one specific way to do that.
My plan is to kind of refine how we did the butchering process for our broiler chickens. So I wanted to make a place out in our backyard or our forest somewhere in our pastures, so we can have a slaughtering station set up ready to go for every time we want to, butcher any of our chickens or anything like that.
And it doesn't have to feel like some big ordeal to do it, because right now we have to really plan ahead to do it. It's like, okay, well, we're both going to be home at this amount of time, and we don't know how many we'll be able to process in that amount of time, but we'll just do as many as we can.
If we had a designated place for it, it would be already set up and ready to go.
Yeah.
A clean station to, butcher them, and then,
because you have your kill cone section.
Right.
You have the feather plucker. Say that 10
feather
times
plucker.
fast. Which is essentially a dryer, a clothes drying machine. The inside of it with a bunch of door stops inside. That's literally all it is.
I guess that's what it looks like.
I mean, and you can't tell me that that's not what it, that's what it is.
Right.
It spins around and around like your dryer. And it's got rubber door stop. That's what they are. Rubber door stoppers all stuck inside of it that the carcass of the chicken gets slapped around in. And with your water hose going into it, it takes the feathers off, and it shoots them out this little hole in the bottom, so it goes all over your ground. It's not stuck in a machine. And then literally after maybe 30 seconds, your chicken is ready to be cut up or whatever.
I don't know what I would do if I didn't have that feather plucker.
No, thank you.
Because the amount of time it would take to pluck a chicken is astronomical. If it was like maybe. If I had to do 3 or 4 chickens, maybe it's fine.
That would still take you a while.
Still take me a while, but
like an hour per chicken.
But the investment on that is very good. I love having it.
Where did we get it, and how much did it cost us?
I can't remember. We got it the first.
We found it online.
First year we was here.
Yeah.
I can't remember where we got it from, but
I don't know.
I'll never do another chicken without that thing again.
I think about our forefathers.
Yeah,
who
I'm
raised,
so sorry.
Had to do all of that by hand. And, when you watch tutorials online of how people do it, like I think Joel Salatin was showing, it's like, hey, everybody that has had to do this by hand, how sick do you feel now?
Right.
Seeing that this kind of thing exists and it's not expensive. I think it was not even like $200.
I think it was I can't remember exactly, but it might have been around that range.
It has far outpaid for itself.
Yeah, definitely.
That would have, it was taking us forever to, and we haven't even killed 1 million chickens. It's just that, it made the process so much easier.
Oh, definitely.
So much easier. And as long as you got a water hose and a place to plug it up outside, you're good. That's all you need. And then after that, you need maybe a big pot.
Yeah.
What you would deep fry a turkey in at Thanksgiving. Fill it with water, make it hot, and so you could scald the chicken before you put it in the.
Yeah, you got to scald the chicken first, and then you put it in the plucker, and then it goes, to an ice bath for a little bit, and then the visceration process.
So you, all right, okay, here we go. Get my thoughts
Okay,
together.
so
You remove the chicken from its enclosure. However you grab it, that's up to you. And then you take it to the kill cone, and you end its life quickly and painlessly and humanely for them. So when you've humanely ended their existence, you take the carcass to the scalding pot, which has to be at a certain temperature. And there's different schools of thought as to how hot that needs to be, but they're in there a matter of seconds. But don't leave them in too long so that they don't cook in the water.
You definitely don't want to cook them. Generally, I think people like it around 140 to 150. Mm-hmm. It's not enough to, cook it and stuff like that, but it releases
germs.
the feathers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also, you can put dish soap in there to help penetrate the feathers a little bit to loosen it up a little bit.
Then they go in the feather plucker.
Yep.
And that's just a matter of seconds as well. Like not even a minute. Literally not even a minute. And then you take it to whatever station it's, to cut it up to like get the guts out. They need
to go to the ice bath first.
Sure.
And then they can go to the evisceration station.
Evisceration station, that's my next band name.
They can then go to the, after that, then they go into another ice bath, which in turn, after that you can dry them out and then package them after that, or do whatever you want to do with it.
Literally a cooler filled with ice and water. That's all that is.
Yep.
It's not some special thing you have to buy. It's the same thing you lug all your drinks in when you go to a 4th of July party.
You need a big cooler. How many are you doing?
Oh, absolutely. But then again, even the one we have can fit like 10 chickens in it.
Yeah.
And they're big. They're fat and ugly chickens. They're ugly that way on purpose. We didn't do that to them.
They're ugly in the fact that, the ones...
all
chickens are ugly.
Yeah. Oh, they can be. They can be. I've seen some pretty chickens, though.
The hairless chicken, though, is, going to be ugly.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, the process is simple if you want to do it. You don't necessarily have to have a chicken plucker, but it is, helpful depending on how many chickens you do.
And we have found, get a propane tank to heat the scalding pot.
Don't try to do a fire.
No.
Or anything. Get a propane tank and a turkey.
Unless you are Survivor Man and know how to make a fire in 2 seconds and can keep it hot, at the same temperature, just get the propane tank.
It's easier to maintain if you have a lot to do.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
That way you can set it and forget it. And then, if you have like 10 or 20 to do, just get a propane tank and a turkey fryer and go to town.
What's great is the majority of the things you need are available to you locally.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I would mention, other than like freezer bags to put them in, a good knife. Oh my gosh.
Yes, definitely a good knife, because if you're trying to cut through anything, a good knife is a highly recommended tool. Just know how to use it.
We have done this process using ordinary kitchen knives that were not made for this and were somewhat dull. And oh my gosh, it took so much longer.
So much longer.
And then when we bought nicer knives, and I don't even mean that they were particularly expensive knives. They were just new, sharp knives that were like more like a fillet knife, or I'm not going to say there's one particular kind you need to use. It's just
make sure it's sharp.
Just make sure it's sharp, and you will save yourself so much extra time. And I'd love to eventually make a video of how we do this process.
Yeah.
I am grateful, however, that there are a million YouTube tutorials out there from other farmers and homesteaders on how it's done. And if that's something you're interested in, check them out, because you'll find how easy it actually is.
It really is.
It's not nearly as daunting as what I thought it would be.
Everybody has their own different ways of doing things, and who knows? You might find a different way of doing it better.
Absolutely. something that you have found makes it easier.
Right.
And
It's all,
share that information.
All depends on your circumstances.
Yes.
So if you find a different way to do it that's easier for you, by all means,
yes.
have at it. But yeah, the killing station is,
it's a big part of
big part of it. So,
but it is not nearly as difficult to set up and maintain.
And you might
as
think
it sounds like.
You might think it's scary to do. It's really not.
It's not. You get used to that pretty quick.
You get used to it.
I'm not going to pretend that I could just go and do that. The technique does take practice, as far as slitting their little throats.
Yeah.
That sounds so awful to say.
It does sound awful, but that's what has to happen.
It has to. You need to eat. Your family needs to eat, and you have cared for this animal. Gave them a good life, and you're not helping anybody by prolonging it longer than it needs to.
But it happens so quick; they're dead as soon as you do it. Like it's nothing.
It's not horrifying.
No.
It's not dramatic. It doesn't have to be. And we do this with our children there.
Yeah. And
our
Marissa, our 4-year-old.
Yeah.
She watches do it. She's like,
she's fascinated.
Okay. That's what they used to do in the olden days.
Absolutely.
They didn't go to Walmart or Food Lion to get the chicken.
Speaking of our children.
Yeah,
Hello,
speaking of our children. But yeah, they didn't go to Food Lion or Walmart to get their feed. You
had to raise it yourself.
Yep.
And we don't make a big deal out of it with them, with her. We just we're just processing chickens. That's
so yeah. Sorry about that. We have our other child here. He screams sometimes, don't you, bud?
He does. He said, "I make myself heard." Nothing wrong with that.
But you got to start somewhere. So where can you go about getting these chickens from?
Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of places. You can buy chicks. You can buy eggs. You can buy grown chickens.
Yep.
We have done almost all of those. We have what works best for us consistently is buying chicks from hatcheries.
Right.
And there's lots of great hatcheries to choose from. It blew my mind the first time that we bought chicks and had them show up in the mail. That was so cool. Like, you could do that. It's like, yeah, people have been doing that forever.
Yeah.
We used Murray McMurray hatcheries
Murray
each
McMurray
time.
Hatchery.
We've been pleased with that process. Great customer service and stuff so far. Lots to choose from. And I think we talked about this some in the first episode.
I think so.
But just to reiterate, when we first bought chickens, we got a call at like 5 a.m. when they arrived at the post office. So we rushed out. It was like a Thursday morning, middle of February. And we rushed to get our clothes on, load everybody up in the car, and to go to the post office. We went to the wrong post office.
Yeah, we did.
And picked up someone else's chickens by mistake. We didn't take the time to be like, hey, what's the address? Is it to us? Because our first thought is, oh, chickens, let's get them. Let's bring them home.
Because we live on, I'm not going to say what town we live in, but we live on the edge of our town. And the closest one, in theory, is a wrong one.
Yeah, the closest post office to us is not our post office.
Right. So they go off base of what your county is.
Mm-hmm, your zip code.
Zip code, and they shipped them to that zip code, that UPS.
Mm-hmm.
USPS
and
location.
So we went to the closest one. That was incorrect. And we even got them out of the box, put them in the brooders, and be like, wait, I don't think this is what we ordered, actually.
We didn't even look at the tag.
No.
We got someone else's, yeah.
It's someone that, I'm probably related to, based off of the last name, just because where we live, everybody's related. So we put them back in the box, took them back to the post office, and apparently the person they belonged to had just gotten there as we just brought them back.
Right.
Because I think it was either them or someone else had just left with chicks when we were leaving.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wait a minute. Wrong post office. So we finally figured out the right post office to go to, and went in and got them into the truck. And it was so cool because they were in this cardboard box with holes all through it, and it had our name on it this time.
Double check
Because you might be in a similar situation.
Mm-hmm.
Adventures. and brought them home. And we had 2 brooders set up inside the house at that time. That may or may not be the way you want to go. There's pros and cons to it. It meant that it was easier for me to clean their cages and feed them, with children in the house rather than having to put somebody on my back or put somebody in a car seat to bring them outside.
Right.
Make sure that they were safely and secure. But it can also create a smell in the house, and the dust kick up from the pine shavings is one thing.
Yeah, the dust from the brooder boxes is insane.
It's not a big deal, but it's you don't want it.
I'll never do that again.
No.
We're gonna make the brooder boxes outside.
Yes.
But
currently, the last chicks that we got. There's a room under the house that you fortified with some walls some time ago, and we made sure any holes were plugged up with rocks or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a dirt floor that we put pine shavings. I've got them at Tractor Supply. Not a big deal. It's like $10 for a big thing of them.
Right.
And a heat lamp and a gravity-fed waterer and a gravity-fed feeder.
Right.
That all of that is, and then you may want to go a different route. But all of those things, unless you make your own, are still readily available nearby you, likely.
That's one thing I'd like to eventually do is have like a bigger brooder outside. That way we can, have as many as we want in there as you can.
Sure. But
it'll be more isolated to not attached to the house and cleaner that way. So
because there's going to be a smell in your house if animals are under your house.
Well, yeah, but it's not, you don't keep them in there for like forever.
No,
so.
no. After what, about like eight weeks tops? Even sooner than that.
Depends on when the chickens get their feathers.
Sure.
And also depends on how cold it is outside. So you have to just kind of gauge what's best for that type of chicken, because other chickens could get their feathers sooner or later.
Sure. Every breed's a little bit different.
Yeah, every breed's different. So,
and especially the ones bred for that are bred for meat, they get them way sooner, because they're growing so much faster.
Yeah.
And I know we already joked, those are ugly. They're so ugly.
They are ugly.
But they taste good. I'll tell you what. But now maybe you don't want to buy chicks from somewhere else. Maybe you want to hatch your own. A local farmer probably has some more than they can deal with. I can say that that is one route. We've done the whole incubation process. It's actually quite fascinating. It is labor intensive. That's why you're paying what you're paying when you buy them from a hatchery.
Oh, yeah.
Because someone is monitoring those eggs constantly for a certain amount of time. The incubator has to stay at a certain level of humidity and heat. And it's not hard. It takes time. It takes about 3 weeks in an incubator for a normal chicken egg to hatch. The candling process is so cool.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You take it to a dark room, put a flashlight up under it, and you can see whether it's been fertilized or how far in the fertilization process it is.
Right.
And the coolest thing is when you see them moving inside.
Sometimes it's hit or miss, but,
And that's another part of the whole labor-intensive process. It's okay, so I've got 18 eggs in here. Or no, sometimes you can hold way more in there if you've commercially bought one or made one yourself in an incubator.
Just depends on the size.
Yeah. And it's so I've got 30 in here. It could be 30 chicks come from this.
Yeah.
But also it might not at all. There's the potential for that, but we don't know.
Right.
We don't know.
What I'm trying to say is it's easy to do. You don't have to, it's not a big ordeal to, get and do this stuff yourself. No. Anybody with a small backyard could even have a few chicks. You just got to check with your local ordinance.
Yeah, if you have an HOA, just check into that. Because some are you can have chickens, just not a rooster.
Well, I don't agree with that thing. You grow your own food, but don't want to get you in trouble and say do it. But yeah. So back to the thought of we would like to do this commercially. Doing this for a couple of years now, we feel like we're kind of getting to that point where it might be beneficial to raise chickens for other people, to give them a good source of meat and protein for their diet, and just know where their food's coming from. If you can't do it yourself, have someone close to you do it. And
because that may not be a possibility for you,
right?
But if you want better meat, maybe you can't raise it yourself, but maybe someone near you is raising it.
Yeah.
And you should absolutely look into what they have to offer.
Definitely.
And I'm not, even if it's not us. Hey, if it is us, you better ask us. But maybe you live somewhere else. And
because our thought process is, you don't know what they're pumping into those animals at the store. You don't know their life cycle or life, how they got there or anything like that. And our focus, if we do decide to go the commercial route and offer chickens to people, we want to record that and show everyone how it's done, and also how their meat is being raised, and what we have to offer.
So I guess in closing, I'd love to hear what some of your experiences have been with raising chickens, or what you've heard about people raising chickens, the easy, the hard, all of that. The things that would draw you to raising your own chickens, whether you have or have not. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, and any questions that you have about what we've gone through with this.
Yeah. So any questions, just send it to contact@foreverhomestead.com. We'll be glad to answer any questions you have, or shoot us a message on Facebook or something like that. I do want to say we do have a YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. All that way you can reach out. We also just did launch our own Patreon page. You can go there and try to help support us if you like. It's not required or anything like that, but we're trying to build a community, and build a sustainable way of living, as well as help others learn about the process of raising your own food to a better way of living. But yeah, do you have any other closing arguments?
The only other thing I want to mention, if he'll let me, is it is absolutely true what they say, that chickens are the gateway. When you get chickens, you think, oh, okay, it's just a couple chickens. Oh, maybe it's just a little more chickens. Oh, maybe we'll get pigs now.
Yeah.
And it gradually, everyone is like that. Once they got chickens, they at least want to try these other things, because they find how easy it was, or how rewarding it was, even if it was kind of difficult. And so in our next episode, we'll talk about something that chickens were the gateway for us to pigs,
right,
to raising pigs.
So next time we'll get into the pigs, what we want to do with those and stuff like that. And we don't have time this episode, so pigs will be probably the next episode if another topic doesn't come up. And if you do have any topics you'd like to discuss, like I said, just message us on any of our platforms or email us. So I guess that'll tie it up for this episode. Thanks for listening to Country Living Conversations. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.